Welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host Scotty McCoy, and boy do I have a surprise for all of you. I have on Zoom with me right now Mark N2, and he is the director and writer of Massacre Academy and Wolf Hollow, which we'll be getting into. So how you doing, Mark?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me, man. I've been looking forward to this all week. So.
Not a problem. It's funny because we just started talking when I reached out to you to do the interview, maybe last week or the week before that, and we actually became pretty close friends since that. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been one of those nice little things where it's like, oh yeah, we know a bunch of people, and oh yeah, we have a bunch of stuff in common. Oh, we make movies. Oh, we should just hang out. We should just make movies.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly true, and I'm looking forward to watching Massacre Academy. I will be watching that probably next weekend. Hoping.
No pressure. No pressure.
And I'll be letting you know my in-depth details about it. And obviously, the premiere's coming up. We'll be getting into that. That's going to be exciting as well. But the first and foremost, is obviously you are a filmmaker. You made Massacre Academy. You're going to be making Wolf Hollow. What made you decide to become a filmmaker?
Honestly, like I started off, and I've told this story a few times, but I started off as an actor, really. Mm-hmm. And so, like any other actor, it's really for the attention, to be honest with you. I mean, let's be honest. But as I kind of went down the path of being an actor, I really kind of felt myself like on other people's sets, kind of going, I'd maybe do that there. I'd maybe do that there. Like you could feel the bug just a little bit.
Yeah.
And as I kind of got older, and I could kind of verbalize what I was actually seeing in my head, visually, that was kind of my first indication. I was like, you know what, I should probably be directing. Or at the very least take a stab at it. And once I did that, like I said, my first short film was in college. It was a terrible horror movie, which was an indication of things to come, I guess. But yeah, that was my first experience as a director, and like I said, I've been hooked ever since. So
that's awesome. It's really cool. And it's really important to be a director and have a bit, because like if you're directing something you're writing, it's your vision. So it's easier for you to bring it to life than somebody else taking the reins.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I, especially as I've gotten older, I'm a lot more invested in my material now. And I'm able to see things a lot more clearly now. I understand what I'm trying to do. Right. And so it's in my best interest as well to just kind of feel like, look, I'm going to write, I'm going to direct, and I'm going to edit this thing because I know what I'm seeing, I know what I'm hearing. And that just kind of works well for everybody. And like I said, it helps kind of create a more efficient environment when you're on set as well. So everybody's kind of relaxed and everybody's doing their job well. So.
Absolutely. And it's funny because when I was interviewing Jess the other day, like she said that she said a story about your son, and I was thinking 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, like giving the stank face, holding the boom mic, and 18 years old. And I'm like, wait, I could have swore Mark was like 24, 25. He's like, he's going to thank you for that.
And I love you so much for that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I am going to be 43 in October.
Wow, so. Really? You do not look 43, not at all.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
To be fair, I don't act like I'm 43 either, or 42 either. I mean, most of the time I act like a child. So, or at the very least, a really educated teenager, and that's about it.
Right.
So
I'm going to be 32 this year, and that's what I love about you, because you have the same type of personality I do, childlike. Yeah. And that's how I am. And that might be why we get along so well and are molded together, like, because we have that type of personality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's one of the things where, honestly, as I've gotten older, and I think, like, I tell my wife this every once in a while, I was like, I think I was made for middle age anyway. Right. So as I've gotten older, I'm able to appreciate, kind of separating the BS from like the things that really need to happen. So I'm a little bit more relaxed. I'm a lot more easygoing. So I tend to joke a bit more. So things are a little bit lighter now than they used to be. But yeah, like I said, there's no point in kind of, being kind of just too serious and too grumpy and all that. And
right. So absolutely. Yeah. So what horror films got you into the genre, and what is your current favorite horror film?
I would honestly say Jaws is my first and foremost. Like, that's my favorite movie of all time. Jaws is my top film of all time, and I consider it a horror movie. I know some people are like, well, it's kind of more like a thriller, it's more of an adventure, but I'm like, it's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
It's totally a horror movie. Beyond that, I mean, I was raised in the 80s where it was like The Exorcist, The Fly,
Yeah.
And all the slasher movies, like I said, like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. So I grew up in that era anyway. So it was one of those nice things where I got to see a lot of practical effects. The Thing is probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And again, it's because of the practical effects. The story's great, the acting's great, but it's the practical effects and just like how much they push the genre at that point. And
Right.
so
Now, CG is good to an extent if it's done right, but I am a person that prefers the practical effects because it looks more authentic, because it is more authentic.
absolutely. And it's one of those things where I would rather CG be used to kind of remove things, like remove
Yes.
wires, remove green
Right.
screen. I'm like, that's great, that's fantastic. But
Right.
if an actor can touch it and interact with it, and at the very least have some sort of frame of reference there. To be fair, like I said, like if you look at the Avengers movies, I mean, the photorealism of like all the CG in that is amazing now.
Yeah.
And that feels like it's always the exception. You're like, that's great because it looks fantastic, and it feels like it actually is there. But for the most part, when you see bad CGI, my daughter and I would watch like YouTube like top 10 lists, and we were talking about like the worst like video game movies,
Right.
and it was like Mortal Kombat Annihilation and Alone in the Dark. You're like, oh my god, and the CG is terrible, and it just takes you out of everything. You're like, this
One
is
thing
why
I waited forever to see Freddy versus Jason. I love Freddy versus Jason, and when it finally came out, I was like, "This is awesome!" And then the CG blood,
yeah.
like just like for example, when the security asylum guard got the door knocked down on him and all that blood on the floor. Really, like you couldn't use fake real blood. You had to use CG blood. You could tell it wasn't real blood.
Yeah, and there's some great practical effects and stunt work in that movie.
Yeah.
And for Jason in some of the fight sequences, but yeah, like I said, if you're gonna give me CG versus
Yeah.
a nice happy accident on set, I'll take the happy accident any day of the
Right.
week. There's just something genuine about that. It just feels right.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into Massacre Academy, so there's probably a lot of people that might not be familiar with what Massacre Academy is. So can you tell us what it's about? A little synopsis about
It is an 80s love letter.
it.
Balls to the walls 80s love letter. It is the story of it's about 2 years after an initial attack of a man named Henry Lee Palmer, who kind of went on a killing spree on the campus of Orrstown State University. Completely made up. It's not a real place. But 2 years later, some of the survivors are having to kind of deal with the ramifications of everything that happened. And as they start to kind of deal with that head on and get over it, or start to make some headway past that, all of a sudden there's a new series of murders right around the anniversary. And so they're having to kind of figure out, is this the same guy? Is it somebody else? Like, what's going on here? And just kind of having to solve that mystery as they kind of deal with their baggage as well. So
Awesome. I can't wait to see this. I really can. I'm so excited.
well, you've got a link for it.
I do. I might have to ask you for the link again when I'm about to watch it because it's probably we've talked so much since you sent it to me. It's probably
It's probably way up on the chat. Yeah.
Yes, I might ask you for it again. And if you do, what I'll do is I'll probably send it to myself in a private message. That'll probably be the smart thing to do, or even favorite it or something like that.
Yeah. Or I'll just email it to you as well. Whatever.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. So where did the idea of Massacre Academy come from? Because we know you grew up in the 80s. You love the 80s. I love the 80s too. I wish I could see the 80s movies in the theaters. I grew up in December 89. That's when I was born.
You were
so
like
right everything. I was like right at the end of the 80s when I was born. So
you came out and you're like, what did I miss?
Anything? Right, exactly. I grew up in the 90s, like with good 90s stuff, 90s video games. But I wish I would have saw the 80s horror. But where did this idea of Massacre Academy come from?
So the idea for Massacre, I mean, genuinely started. I was kind of coming off of a period in my life where I was just kind of reevaluating things. I had kind of dealt with a lot of personal issues, which I'm pretty vocal about on social media anyway. A lot of eating disorders and alcohol. And at that point, I kind of decided, I was like, what the hell do I want to do? Like, I needed to have that conversation with myself. And so I didn't even know at one point, I didn't even know if I was going to make another movie again. Like, I was just like, you know what? Am I even good at this anymore? Do I even bother? It puts such a strain on my family and our finances sometimes, but when it's done the wrong way. And so as I kind of started to reevaluate my life, I kind of sat back and I was like, what do I want to do and what speaks to me? Like what makes me me and what do I fall in love with whenever I talk about movies? And it was the first things that jumped out were the 80s and practical effects. And I was like, okay, well then how do I put that into a movie and make something that I give a shit about? And so at the end of the day, I had gone back and I had remembered a short movie that I had written. And in that movie, I had written like a little sequence where there was a frat party and some people told us a horror story about some guy that, killed people. And then the guy came in and actually killed a bunch of people at the party. And I was like, well, maybe I could use that. And I was like, so I used that as my jumping off point. And I was like, so then what's the story and what's the, how do I move this character around here and how do I do? And I just started to slowly over the period of about maybe 2 or 3 months, like the story slowly started to kind of lay itself out for me. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's a clown. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And I just wound up coming up with the story, coming up with the idea, coming up with the character that would become Carney, the killer clown. And it was one of those things where it was like, and it came from the most honest place in me. And it was like, what do I want to do that's going to make me fall in love with making movies again? And so hopefully when you see this, you can tell there's nothing but love for the material. There's nothing but love for the lighting style. There's, the editing, the dialogue. I mean, I really tried to leave it out there. It's kind of weird, like a sports analogy almost, where it's like you're a performer, leave it all out there and don't leave any stone unturned. And, at the end of the day, let everybody else judge your material, but you did the best you could. You left all of your heart and soul out there. And that's pretty much what we did.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, my boyfriend's not a fan of horror movies at all, but he I force him to watch them. Like he doesn't want to see Halloween Kills. I'm like, he's like, you're not. He's like, you can go see it yourself. I'm like, no, you're going. You don't have a choice in the matter. You're going to see Halloween Kills.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna see. Let's see. I'm gonna try my hardest to get him to watch Massacre Academy with me. Maybe we'll even watch it tonight. We'll see. But I will.
We'll see.
If he doesn't, I'm on my own. But I love it, and I'm not afraid of clowns myself. I know a lot of people that are afraid of clowns. That's why I like to integrate like a clown in my movie because I know it scares the shit out of
Right,
them.
exactly. Right.
It's a very common phobia. It really is.
It is. It's one of those things, like I said, that I didn't want to oversell it, but it's one of those things where it was like, yeah, let's kind of speak to everything that, kind of makes people uncomfortable and,
Yeah.
whether it's clowns, whether it's snakes, whether it's, whatever the fear is,
Right.
let's address that head on. Because I've even got a couple of fears, that I had to deal with, and those are in the movie. And like I said, we try to kind of do things like that on the regular now. Like I said, especially I try to kind of make sure I'm addressing things that I'm afraid of as much as the audience is afraid of as well. So
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So, what was the hardest part about getting Massacre Academy completed?
Honestly, I would say from a technical standpoint, from a production standpoint, it was dealing with COVID. And that was such a huge thing for us to even attempt. Luckily, we had people that were extraordinarily responsible. We were very lucky. Luck has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I said, we tried to prepare as much as possible. And there were some productions that we had heard that were kind of going on. And there were some ways you could kind of, there was a website for, I think, like safe sets for COVID protocol or something like that. So we made sure that we were kind of adhering to those things, making sure that everybody was kind of getting tested. We did have the luck of having pretty much every scene that we had, we could keep it to, it's only these 2 or 3 actors on any given day. So it minimized our numbers a lot. And there was a point where we were like, you know what? We don't need a lot of hands on deck here. Instead of having 6 PAs sitting around doing absolutely nothing, let's only have 2. And let's make sure that, obviously we're moving efficiently.
Yeah.
So things like that had to be addressed and we had to kind of work through those problems.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably the most, just from a coordination standpoint, that was probably the most difficult part. So.
Yeah, and COVID really it fucked up a lot of stuff. It really did.
And the thing is, though, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I count us, and when I say us, I mean, I'm talking about the entire production. I count us extremely lucky because despite all that chaos and despite all that, we were still lucky enough to make a movie. And we were lucky enough to still be creative and
Yep.
still have a good time and still be efficient and still. So I mean, there was a lot of things that had to fall into place the right way,
Yeah.
and everything happened for us the right way, luckily, on this. And I was like, thank God. So
Yeah, thank God for that. It was right. Like, I
yeah,
mean, it just grew up a lot of people. Like even Hollywood itself, like it shut down a lot
yeah,
of places,
yeah,
and some places were able to still get films out, and that I mean that's good. I mean, no casualties, no injuries, no infections or
yeah.
any stuff, which is a big plus. A big plus.
Well, and I think part of the issue for us too, and this is kind of like, I mean, you want to stay creative, you want to stay as malleable as possible. And one of the things that I was seeing a trend in, like some of the media that was starting to come out during COVID, was people were okay with being in masks on TV and on Grey's Anatomy, and they're addressing storylines. And so it was like, how the hell do we do that in the 80s? Like, how do you address that?
Mhm.
And so one of the things that changed was there's a huge frat um, party scene, like right in the middle of the movie, probably at the end of the first act. And initially, it was the way it's written in the script. It was the sweaters and the pop collars, and everyone looks like they're in the 80s.
Right.
And it was like, you know what? That's the most irresponsible way to do that. If we're going to do it safely, why don't we have everybody in gas masks? It's the Holocaust. It's like a nuclear holocaust. It's
Right.
fallout, and it's that 80s paranoia. So everyone's wearing Road Warrior masks and shit. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, that works. And so it kept everybody safe, but it also kept us adhering even more to the period, which was kind of a lucky accident or a happy accident. But yeah, it was things like that where it was like it forced you to kind of get creative with the material and go, it's not how I really wanted it, but in order to keep everybody safe and in order for us to keep moving forward, this is probably the best decision. So, and it looks great now. So yeah.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. Imagine like if you were filming Massacre Academy, I'd say month, maybe 2 months ago. Cicadas
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. That would have been like plague, locusts, holocaust. I mean, like, yeah,
I
it
know,
would have
right?
been against you at that point. Yeah,
And
for
the
sure.
cicadas, that was one thing we were worried about with 72. Thank God they're kind of cleared up
Oh,
now, but that
yeah.
the cicadas, they would mess up the sound so much.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. I
would
can only
really mess
imagine. So God bless you for getting through that.
I
So,
know. Oh my God. I can only imagine. Whew. So what do you have any fun stories from behind the scenes that you want to tell the listening and viewing audience from Massacre Academy?
fun stories. I will tell you, people tend to get really goofy when you've kind of been working a couple of days in a row and doing long days. And luckily, we didn't have a lot of long days. Like we didn't get to a point where we were just like, oh my God, I'm dying.
Right.
But and Jess alluded to it on her podcast as well. But there was a point where, like, and I don't think I've ever laughed like that hard in a while. But she started doing that damn Bruce voice from Family Guy. And so, like, when you asked her about it, I was like, she's gonna say this, she's gonna say the voice, and I know she's gonna say it. And sure enough, like I said, she brings it up. But it's one of those things that, like, it literally came out of nowhere, and we were just in between takes. I think we were getting ready to either rig somebody with something, or we were waiting for like a costume change or something. And so we were just down. We were waiting for 10 minutes, and I was just laying down. I was kind of trying to rest, and I was kind of delirious because we had been putting in a couple of long weekends in a row. And Jess just starts in with that, oh no. And that thing has become a running joke ever since. And so, like I said, and then I think the only other thing that you might want to ask Sierra about,
Okay.
I know you've got Sierra and Christina on.
I know I have
this
them on,
week.
both of them are on Friday. One's at 12 and
Right.
one's at 3. Don't ask me which one's at which time. It's in my Zoom, but I don't know which one's at which time.
So nobody else outside the cast knows, or yeah, our cast and crew knows this. So you're getting the scoop on this, but at some point, and I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but you might want to ask Sierra and Christina about it.
Okay.
Is somehow when we were on set, Sierra got stuck in an elevator, and Christina left her in there
Ooh.
by herself. And so it
Ooh.
was this thing, like I was walking to set and I saw like Christina walk past me, and I was like, where are you going? She's like, nowhere. And like, they didn't know if Sierra was going to be able to get out of the elevator, but nobody told me anything. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go set up the shot. And they're like, okay, yeah, no, go set up the shot. Yeah, we'll talk to you in a little bit. And so I didn't find out about it until later. They're like, oh yeah, she was totally stuck in the elevator. And I'm like, so that's something you might want to ask them, because I don't
Yeah,
know the
I will
full
talk
ins
to
and
them
outs
about
of that,
that.
but you might want to bring that up with them. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will do that. Little birdie told me that you got stuck in the elevator.
Yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
wanna, you wanna tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So depending on who you interview first, you might get two different sides of the story on that one. So
Right. I think I interview Sierra first. I want to say Sierra first. I don't know off the top of my head, but for some reason I'm thinking Sierra because she was the last one I set up the interview with out of the Fit Girls.
gotcha.
And
Yeah.
I think she says she's free on a Friday, and I was thinking, crap, I work, and I'm like, oh wait, no, I work till 11 on a Friday, not till 2, so I can
Right.
do a 12 o'clock. So I think it was her that I have on at 12. So I
Excellent.
think, but I have to double check that. But yeah, I'll ask them that and see what happens there.
Yeah. Trapped in an elevator. Yeah.
That works.
Happened.
That's awesome. So do you film on weekends? Do you film during the week?
So for this, we were relegated pretty much to weekends on Massacre, just because everyone had day jobs and everything else, and myself included. Um, but that's the hope and dream, is that, moving forward into the next projects, it's like, hey, take these 10 or 15 days off, and we're gonna go off and we're gonna shoot the movie.
Right.
That would be great. I would be in absolute heaven at that point. Um, but yeah, pretty much at this point, we're kind of, like I said, down to just the weekends at this particular point.
Yeah, that's kind of how we are too, in the same way, because like people do have their jobs. Not everybody has time to take off, and other people aren't allowed to take off or stuff like that. So we don't want people to get fired on our end, because
Oh
of
yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what was the best part about filming Massacre Academy, and what was the worst?
Uh, the absolute best part, uh, I think there's two things that
Okay.
kind of tie for me. One, it's absolutely seeing the girls, especially, like I said, Jess, Sierra, and Christina. They absolutely own the movie. I mean, they are the three leads in the movie, and like I said, they to see them deliver every single day was awesome. Just to kind of be like, as long as I don't mess up this shot, as long as I hit record, we're gonna be all right. So, like I said, so it was. I think it was feeling proud of them, and then feeling proud of Ashley, Stephanie, Rick. I mean, like, and everybody else that's in our cast. Like I said, we
Yeah.
we were blessed with such a good cast. Being proud of them all the way through the process. But to see, like I said, Jess, Sierra, and Christina,
Yeah.
who've never been put in that position to literally carry the movie all the way through,
Mhm.
and to see them do it as if they've done this 1,000 times,
Right.
and that was probably the most fun I had just watching that. Um, the worst thing, I would say there was one set that we were on that was actually, it was one day, but it was two different locations.
Mhm.
And we were filming here in McKeesport, which is, like I said, just it's where I live, and it's maybe 20 minutes outside Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But the town used to be like a massive bustling hub of activity,
Right.
and over the years it's kind of dwindled, and buildings are vacant now. They've still got power. They've still got people that own them, but again, it's not a lot of tenants in the building, so you're able to be in empty buildings,
Right.
and not a lot of them have heating or anything like that. So we were shooting scenes in January in Pittsburgh, and there was one day specifically where I legitimately thought my hands were going to freeze. I was just like, I can't take it in here. I'm freezing. And it's the same day Jess was talking about.
Yeah, I was
We were
thinking the
down
same thing.
the
Jess was
hallway.
talking about it.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where the ground floor seemed to be okay. We were like, okay, we can manage this. And the moment we got up to where we needed to shoot, which was 5 floors up, with no heat, no power, no light, no nothing, you're bringing everything in. It was absolutely cold, and it was one of those days where we didn't expect it to, but it was starting to snow outside,
Yeah.
and it was like, this is cold, and it was marble, and it was like everyone was miserable,
Yeah.
but you can't tell. Like, you
Right.
look at the footage, you look at and some of our actors are in like really thin shirts, and kind of just maybe a t-shirt underneath. And so in between takes, I mean, they're putting everything back on,
Right.
and it was absolutely just miserable.
Crazy.
So that was probably the toughest day to kind of get through. Because even like our longest day wasn't terrible. Like the longest days that we had were there was a frat massacre kind of at the end of but that's not a spoiler. So,
Right.
but a big frat kind of massacre at the end of Act One. And that, like I said, as long as that took, I think it was probably maybe like a 12-hour shoot. That wasn't tough. Like that was easy. That was cake. But
Right.
compared to that day where it was just freezing cold, like that was absolutely atrocious. It was bad. So
Crazy. Wow.
yeah, the things we
So
do for our movies. So
so how did you happen to make this film though different than any of the other indie horror films that are out there? Like what were you able to do like story wise, writing wise, directing wise, producing wise, anything of the sort? How did you make it different than anything else?
well, I think from my perspective, and again, this is just me. I could be completely way off base, but I think one of my strengths, whenever I make movies, is I'm pretty comfortable with action,
Yeah.
and so I like the pace of action movies. I like I said, how quickly things have to kind of move, and so to me, it was approaching a horror movie with kind of an action sensibility. So it's kind of like the action movie rhythm and kind of the pace and how things have to happen every 5 minutes basically. Because again, I'm from that old school '80s filmmaking where it's like in an action movie there has to be some sort of exciting thing every 5 or 10 minutes. Something has to happen,
Absolutely.
and so that to me that helped me make it completely different. My lighting style, I'm not a contemporary filmmaker by any stretch. Like I don't like a lot of like fancy, current gimmicks. So I wind up gravitating towards '80s filmmaking and '80s lighting. So like I said, so this was like it fit me like a glove, and I was like, I can nail, and I know I can nail that look. I know I can nail the blue lights and the smoke and all that.
Right.
So I think it's the love of action movies and it's the love of the actual period, the time period, is that's what makes this movie stand out more than anything else because it really does nail that '80s aesthetic hardcore. So
And
yeah,
it's not like watching a Friday the 13th or a Halloween where it's 80s style because it is in the 80s. Like this is
right.
making something that is present day 2020s, into an 80s style. So it's gonna be harder to nail that because of it being so far away from that time period. Back in the Friday the 13th era, you could make it a
It was
80s
just the
horror
way it
because
was.
it
Yeah,
was the
exactly.
80s.
Yeah. And that was the thing too, is that I tried to approach it in that respect. It was like, what kind of lenses would they have had access to at that point? What would the color temperature on the film be at that point? Because at one point it would have to be this, and what kind of graduated filters, and like, I mean, there's literally hours of homework that I do on stuff like that.
Nice.
Um, so I mean, but at the same time, I didn't want to make it cynical. I didn't want it to make it like, hey, look, we're making fun of the '80s. Like, I didn't want to do that. I was like,
Right.
no, I genuinely love this period, and I want it to be a love letter to this. It can't be taking a shot at the '80s. It's like, no, you got to really love that in order to nail it the right way. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
So the next two questions are the part that we all been waiting for. So tell us how if John from Arizona, for example, he wants to go to see this premiere. How can he go? Where can he go? Where is it at? Like, how do you get your tickets? How much are they? Where can he go and do all this?
So first and foremost, we are. Thank you, John from Arizona. Um, Whoever you may be in the scenario. But if you go to the Lamp Theater's website, I believe it's under lamptheater.org, if I'm not mistaken. But if you go to the Lamps website, like I said, we're having our premiere here in Irwin, PA on July 31st at 7 o'clock. Doors open at 6. Tickets are $30, but like I said, for that, you're actually getting access to the red carpet. We're actually having a Q&A afterwards. We've got some special door prizes, pictures with the cast and crew. Like I said, you're going to get to meet everybody. After that, we'll hopefully be getting announcements for film festivals around the country and outside the country. So
Nice.
right now we've got about, I'd say 45 to 50 submissions right now that are kind of pending. So, and I mean, those are everywhere from Arizona for John in Arizona, Massachusetts and Vermont to the United Kingdom to Germany. I mean, it's like, so, like I said, there's a ton of locations that we've got covered. Madrid is one of them, I think, as well. So like I said, so we've got, hopefully once we start to get accepted all the way through, like I said, we'll have screenings around the world and start announcing those at whatever festivals are in your area. So stay tuned.
So are you going to be going to say the United Kingdom or Germany if you get accepted over
Oh,
there?
I wish. I wish. Um, I I would love to go. Obviously, I mean it's a budgetary thing.
Yeah,
But if it's something within driving distance from Pittsburgh, I mean, even if it's 6 or 7 hours,
yeah.
I may be crazy enough to drive it. So
Right, nice. Before I get to the last question of Massacre Academy and hop into Wolf Hollow, I'm not going to really say much about this because we're talking more about it. But so I'm not going to really say anything about it. But I do want to say is I'm about 5 hours from Pittsburgh. I know we talked about working together eventually. How I'm not a city driver. How is but I would drive to Pittsburgh. I know my boyfriend said he'll be my navigator and he'll stay at the hotel while I film and everything. So be it.
right.
But is it an easy drive?
So where are you coming from?
Well, I currently live
Oh,
in Woodlawn, Maryland, but I'd probably be I
right.
don't yeah, I'd probably be coming from Woodlawn, Maryland.
Right. So if you're coming up from Maryland, my wife and I and our kids, we actually did from DC. So is that close
I'm
to?
not far from DC. I'm about maybe 35 minutes away.
Yeah. So I mean, we did that drive. I mean, honestly, again, I'm from Texas, and like it takes you hours to get anywhere anyway. So like I'm used to those drives. So when I drove from DC to back home to Pittsburgh, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's a nice scenic drive. There's some bends here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much a straight shot.
Right. Because
Um,
the thing I hate about driving those types is like, for example, it says you have a fork in the road, and then when you take you have to take the one fork, which is easy to know which fork you got to take, and then it splits again into upper and
right.
lower and like over that way. And it's like,
Yeah.
which way do I go?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like coming back from Maryland and the DC area, that wasn't the case. It was pretty much a straight shot. Like I said, I
Okay.
can't remember what the freeway is,
Okay.
but yeah, it wasn't too terribly confusing to kind of get
Okay.
on one and just follow
I
it, and
could
that's all.
probably do that easily. So
Yeah,
that
yeah,
works
yeah.
for
It was
me.
pretty easy. Yeah, it was pretty easy.
That's awesome. So the last question about Massacre Academy. So after the premiere, obviously, when it's ready to be out, like when and where can anyone that wants to see this film after the premiere, when and where could they be able to see it? Where will it be streaming? Where will it be accessible?
So we're actually having those conversations right now.
Okay.
So we've been speaking to several distributors. Obviously, we can't say who they are,
Mhm.
but we've kind of been working through the process of actually getting it onto several platforms. And so it just really depends on the distributor and what deals they give us.
Yeah.
Some of them are strictly just video on demand. Some of them want to actually do physical DVD releases.
Mhm.
So it just depends on the best deal that we wind up getting offered.
Okay.
And so, like I said, so hopefully, like I said, at that point, and if they don't decide to go with theatrical, we would still retain those rights probably, and so we'd probably push for our own screenings, in your neck of the woods or anybody else's neck of the woods, really. So,
Right.
so hopefully, within about the next couple of months, we should have a really good indication of what we're going to be on.
Awesome. That's great. And if you do ever get in theatrical, you're in a theatrical area near Baltimore, Maryland, or anywhere in Maryland, or like even in Pennsylvania, my part of Pennsylvania, like, hey, I'll go see it again.
Yeah, yeah,
I would love,
absolutely.
there's nothing better than seeing it in a theater.
Exactly. That was one of the things that we were so dead set on. At least I was too, about with our premiere is I wanted to hold off, like I said, because we were done a couple of months ago,
Mhm.
and it was like, yeah, you know what, we could release it while we had some of the COVID restrictions still, and I was like, no, I was like, I want a full house. I want our cast and crew has earned that, and they deserve that.
Oh,
Sit
absolutely.
there and have it. There's such a rush that you get, and it's that sense of community where it's like you got 300 people all in the palm of your hand, and they're all laughing and they're all screaming and they're all jumping at the exact same time. That to me, you can't duplicate that feeling. And so to me, I want that feeling for our cast and crew, especially for premiere night. Like that would be a godsend. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a couple of people in your casting crew that are in 72, and we talked about that already.
that's
And
right.
yep, and
Yeah.
they all said we asked them what days are you not available, what days are you available, so we can work around your schedule. And they're like, well, the 31st we have a premiere. Can't say what premiere it is yet because it's not released. And then like a day later, they're like, well, it was released now, so I can say it, Massacre Academy. We're like,
Right.
well, take the day off, enjoy, have a good time at your premiere. Like we don't want to hold you
Yeah.
back from going to something that you earned. Because we're all in the indie film community. We're all family. Like, you know what I mean? Like we all make movies. Like we are a family. We
Yeah.
really are. And we were more than happy to let them enjoy that. And I know like Amanda Sawyer, Noelle Berger, Michael Taylor, like, they're all going to be there, and I hope they have so much fun doing it, like being there and earning what they deserve.
I will say one thing. Excuse me. Michael Taylor, by far, he has a great moment. And like I said, and that's one of those things where I'm like, I want you to experience that, because every time I've shown the movie to everybody, the moment that he has, it kills. So like I said, it's one of those things. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's one of those things where I'm like, you deserve to see that with everybody. Like you deserve.
You never saw it yet?
Yeah.
Did he ever see it yet?
He has seen it. So
Okay.
yeah, and Noelle has seen it at this point. So
Okay, nice. I can't wait to see that. And I'm
yeah,
gonna be like, I'll be ragging on Michael, like whatever it is. I don't know what it is yet off the top of my head. I think you might have told me briefly, but I haven't like seen it. So I can't wait to see it and start ragging on Michael, because I actually meet him for the first time on Saturday. Because Saturday we're filming a Heavy Duty Man together, and he's one of the people I think
that's
that's
right. I did see that. Yeah, I saw you guys
or something
posting
like that.
Congratulations. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that'll be so much fun. I can't wait to meet him in person. He seems like a really nice guy, and
One of the nicest guys I've met. Yeah, fantastic guy.
that's awesome. I work with him this Saturday, so I'm really excited to see him and meet him. So going on to Wolf Hollow, I haven't read the script yet. I do know based on the title, I'm assuming Wolf Hollow is going to be entirely different than Massacre Academy. So can you tell us a bit about what the film will be about?
It will be about it's going to wind up actually being about werewolves. So I kind of figured. So I don't want to get too far into the spoilers or anything like that, but I will say that we're bringing on quite a few of our Massacre Academy veterans.
Nice.
Like I said, we've got Christina Krakowski. She's coming on. She's playing the lead, Alex.
Yep.
Jess gets to wind up playing probably one of the meanest, bitchiest. Yeah, I was trying to find a nice word for it, but yeah, she gets just a despicable person.
Oof.
And I pitched it to her that way. I was like, I want you to play this, and I want you to play something completely different than Chris. And she was like, I'm all about that. I'm on board. So I like challenging everybody. I said, I'm like, I've seen you do this, but now let's see if you can do this instead too.
Right.
Like I think you can, because I know you can. So, but pretty much like I said, there's we're still finishing up the first draft right now. But it is werewolves. It is a group of people, and there will be blood, lots of blood and gore and fur, and that's pretty much all I can say at this point. So without spoiling a lot.
Nice. I would love it, and I don't, like I said, I haven't read the script, so don't take my word for it. I'm sure you can confirm it, but I would love to see somebody get gobbled up whole by a werewolf.
Have you seen Psycho Goreman?
Sounds familiar. I may have a long time ago.
It's one of those movies that just came out last year.
Okay.
And we just saw it kind of.
Well, then I haven't seen it. If it's that, I thought you were talking about like an '80s, like American.
No. Yeah. No. So Psycho Goreman is. I don't know if you're. Did you ever see the movie The Void?
That sounds very familiar. I may have.
Yeah. That one came out maybe about 3 years ago or so.
Yeah, I might have seen that one. That one sounds very familiar.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
But the director for that, the co-director for that, went off and did another movie called Psycho Goreman.
Okay.
That is a love letter to like Power Rangers, hyper violent makeup effects. I mean, like it is absolutely over the top makeup effects, and like some of the stuff that they did on that budget is amazing. Like I looked at it, I was like, this is amazing filmmaking, the amount of things that they were able to put on screen. But that movie, there's one effect, like as you were saying that, there's one effect where the main character, Psycho Goreman, like is devouring one of his enemies. Nice. And like his jaw literally like opens up like a huge like trash bag and just starts to like gobble up one of the characters. I was like, that is amazing. And it's all practical. It's all real. There's no CGI on that. That's awesome. And some of the CGI that they use is kind of intentionally cheesy and like it's not supposed to look great. But it's one of my favorite movies now. And like I said, definitely recommend you look it up.
I will. For some reason that movie sounds so familiar. I don't think I've seen it if it came out within last year, but I mean, it sounds so familiar. So I definitely heard that somewhere. I know I did. It sounds so familiar to me.
Yeah, it's definitely an indie movie that kind of, like I said, kind of flew under the radar. I saw a trailer for it and I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, this looks amazing. And so then I wound up showing my wife, and she was like, we have to see that.
Right.
And so then a friend of ours, and like I said, we were having a dinner, and we were like, you know what? Let's just watch it. And it was one of the greatest movie watching experiences I've ever had in my
Right.
life. And I was like, this is amazing. And like we watched it again like the next day with the kids too, and like it was so good.
Did you
Such a
ever
good-
hear, and I don't know if this is a real movie or not, but did you hear the WWE Studios horror film titled Tables?
No.
So I'm gonna have to send you the trailer to that. It looks so bad, but looks so good at the same time.
Is it a recent like movie?
I don't think it's some. I don't even know if it's a spoof or somebody made a trailer. But I don't know. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I don't. The trailer's on YouTube, but I don't know if it's a real movie. It stars Ronda Rousey and the Dudley Boys, and there's killer tables, and they're trying to kill the tables.
That sounds like one of those. Oh God, what is that one? I think it's Funny or Die, or somebody put it out where it was like ghost tits. I don't know
Okay,
if you saw that. It was so stupid. It's like it's a fake trailer.
right.
It was like a mun, and like she has like these huge breasts, and then like her boyfriend wakes up one day like they're gone, and like she's got like a flat chest. And he's like, "What happened to your tits?" And she's like, "I've always been flat chested." And it's like this like this psycho drama of like, "What happened to the tits? What happened?" Like, and he's going around, and then like eventually like towards the end of the trailer, she's like, "The tits can hear you. They're in the walls," and you're like, "What the hell?" It's so stupid, and it's
I
so
will
over
have
the
to
top.
send you this trailer and show you this
Yeah.
trailer because it is freaking hysterical. Hell,
It sounds like that.
after this, even after this, after I finish recording or whatever, what I could do is I could share my screen. I could just show you it or whatever if you want. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Like it's freaking amazing. Like it's funny. It's so stupid that it looks good. Like yeah.
Yeah, just one of those. But yeah, it sounds like something like that would have like that in that ghost hits arena. So
Yeah. Oh my god, it's freaking great. So, where did you get the idea of doing like the Wolf Hollow? Where'd you get the idea of doing this type of film? Was there any inspiration?
uh I think part of it was I wanted to go back. I mean, one thing that we have access to here, like I said, there's a location that we're going to be using that's kind of a haunted hayride just down the road. And that was
So
one
it's
of the
not
things
the
that was offered,
icebox.
right? Not the icebox. It was one of those where it was offered to us on Massacre and probably like during pre-production. We're like, you know what? I think we're okay with that. We don't need it on this one. But then as I kind of started, like you tend to bookmark those things in your mind, and you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. Like that sounds like something I would use later.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the first locations that got offered to us, and I was like, you know what? I think I can write something around that.
Yeah.
And so that's been incorporated as one of our main locations.
Nice.
But like I said, haunted hayride, werewolves, pretty much all I'm going to say at that point. But
that's
to
actually
be
really
honest with you, part of it is I just want to stay in the type of filmmaking where it's just practical effects.
Mhm.
And I've had such a great time on Massacre doing practical gore and gags, and I mean, like you feel like a kid again.
right.
And so like to me it's energizing to
Yeah.
be on set and be like, what are we going to screw up today? What are we going to tear off today? And
right.
people become kids. Like we all become 10-year-olds again at Halloween.
Right.
Where it's like you're putting makeup on people's faces and arms and stuff like that, and you're just like, yeah, put more blood, and it's so everybody just enjoys it. And I'm just like, I want to be around that for the rest of my life. So
Yeah, and one thing I could
totally-
say 100%, and you probably don't even need this advice, but it's basically stick to practical effects all the time.
Yeah.
Like it really makes it look that much more better.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
really
and
does.
like I said, and if you light it the right way,
Yeah.
it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Things look fantastic. So why would you want to shoot any other way?
Absolutely, absolutely, agree completely. So when and I guess I could say where. I mean, you kind of answered it, but when and where do you plan on filming Wolf Hollow?
So Wolf Hollow will be back here in just slightly east of McKeesport. So there's another smaller kind of township called Irwin, and North for Sales. It's kind of in that general area.
Yeah.
But we're pretty much 20 minutes outside Pittsburgh. I mean, if you go
So you're
anywhere,
not in the city filming.
right, we're not in the city, but I mean, we can pretty much get anywhere if we need to.
Okay.
Like I said, we're kind of in the outlying suburbs of Pittsburgh. But yeah, I mean, everybody pretty much calls it just Pittsburgh. Yeah, we're in Pittsburgh, but we've got these little townships. But pretty much, like I said, we've got the locations here. And it's a matter of literally a 10, 15-minute drive from my house.
Nice.
So it's nice to be like, you know what? at the end of the day, I'm going to get to go back home and sleep in my own bed and,
Yeah.
shoot a movie, but then still come back and reset at the end of the day. And, I think there's something to be said for that. Like I said, mentally, it helps you recharge at the end of the day. You're not out on an island for 20 days, away from home. And I think that would start to mess with me a little bit after a
Yeah,
while.
absolutely. Like if I were to be in Wolf Hollow for whatever reason and I'm full of blood,
If,
obviously,
if
if
you will, you
I know,
will,
yeah, I didn't know if I could say it or not. I didn't know if I could say
you
it.
will.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I could say it. I will be in Wolf Hollow. But when I'm in Wolf Hollow, and if I will say if for spoiler reasons and because I don't know, but if I'm covered in blood, I would love to be at a hotel, obviously, because I think driving 5 hours and if I get pulled over and I'm full of blood, police are gonna be asking questions.
Or they would want your autograph because they're like, "Oh my God, you're in a movie covered in blood."
Yeah, good point. Good point.
There you go. So you never know.
Have I seen you before? You look, you're in a movie or whatever. Like, are you famous or something? Like, do I know you? Oh yeah, I was on the Ellen DeGeneres show the other day. I'm in this big A Hollywood blockbuster, but I'm filming at McKeesport, Irwin, Pennsylvania.
And then that's when you pull up the Instagram page and you're just like, "Oh, you might want to like our page while we're talking here."
Right,
officer."
absolutely,
And then you speed off.
exactly. Now, did you ever watch Friends?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, remember when when Ross gets pulled over after Rachel does? He's like, "Hello, officer, pretty."
Pretty, yeah.
Yeah, just flirt with the cop, but instead of flirting with the cop, I'll be pulling up some celebrity status to the cop.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Name dropping yourself. I don't know if that works, but you can try it.
I could try it. I don't have boobs though. I don't have like boobs to get out of the ticket. So I'm gonna have to use some fame.
You're gonna have to get creative. Yeah.
I have to get creative. That's what we do in filmmaking, though. We're creative human beings. So I'll have to improv something on the top of my head.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
So,
go.
Absolutely. So do you I know obviously Wolf Hollow is still in the writing stage, the pre-production stage. So do you have any anticipated release date or year at least for the film, even though it hasn't been filmed? And if so, when?
It would be great to be able to shoot Wolf next spring because, like I said, typically I like to work like kind of like a year out. So it'd be great to shoot in spring.
Yeah.
If I can edit that fast, I would love to have an October of next year premiere.
Yeah.
And typically, like I do work pretty fast anyway. Like I said, we finished shooting Massacre in February,
right?
And I had my completed cut by beginning of April. I mean, so like and that was sound, that was picture cut, that was everything. But that's also because I'm literally cutting as we're going. So. And that's one of the nice parts about shooting on weekends is like we can shoot for 2 days and then I have 5 days to edit the thing and get it right and then work on the next 2 days after that. So like I said, so it's hopefully that would happen on Wolf. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. I mean, I can't. One thing that is good is that you don't rush it, and I know you don't rush it. Like you do it, and if it takes longer, it takes longer. Like I mean, you didn't want to like release it obviously before the premiere because you wanted everybody to get what they earned, and like just those type of things show what kind of filmmaker you are, and it shows that you care about not just the audience that will see it, but you also care about the cast that put in their hard work, their time, and all that stuff involved. Because it's not like where you can where it's like I just put all my time to act in this, but there's all the stuff outside of being on set, where memorizing your lines and practicing your scenes outside of being on set, so you can get it right when you're on set. Like there's so much that goes into being an actor that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it's always. I've been lucky enough to have enough people around me to be malleable in that process, where it's. Even though they've done their homework, like I come to the table and I know I've done my homework and I prep that morning as well. So I mean, like I'm well versed in the day and I know what I'm doing, but I'm never against an actor who's done their homework and they know exactly what they're going to do, coming to set and just going, can I try this instead? Because I think even Jess like brought it up as well, where it's like there were some moments where I was like, you've got 3 lines here, and she was like, but I don't think I should say that, and I'm like, I agree, I completely agree. And that comes from having that communication. And then sometimes it's me also challenging the actors and saying, I know you've rehearsed it this way for the last 2 months.
Right.
Try it this way instead, and seeing how they react to that, and
And
understanding that
there's
they.
nothing wrong with filming it that way and this way and that way and this way, because you can get all these different takes. And then when you're editing it in post production, splicing the best ones together. Because you might say, this way sounds really great. Try it this way. And when you film it, it is good. But then you say, now try it this way. That one might be even better.
Yeah, and like I said, there are some times where like I tend to overwrite jokes sometimes, and so there are some times where I'm just like, once you get in the edit, like even then you're like, that doesn't work. Like we're gonna have to cut that, or we're gonna have to kind of move things a little bit faster. So things aren't precious to me. Like I said, I try not to make sure that like my jokes on the page are good, or even if it's an emotional scene, it may not work. So it's one of those things where like you have to be sensitive to those things, and like I said, just kind of be ready to push past it, or make it a bigger moment because the actor brought something to it that you didn't see before. So
Absolutely. So, what do you believe will be the hardest part of filming Wolf Hollow once you go into production? If you had like your crystal ball, what do you think will be the hardest part of getting this film made?
trying not to kill the actors by putting them in big furry suits. Um, we did a photo shoot um, about 2 weeks ago. We were just doing just kind of like some conceptual stuff.
Mhm.
And one of our actors, who's a pretty tall guy, his name's Brian Saponis. I love him to death. He's fantastic. He's one of my closest friends, and he's an amazing actor. But he was our model for the wolf suit. I was like, I need somebody that's big because Christina's like 5'2", 5'3", and Saponis is 6'5". So I'm like, just put the suit on and like we'll make it look great. And so he was in that thing. And again, it's not a full suit. It was maybe just a headpiece and some gloves. And by the time he was done, he was in there for 5 minutes, and he was like, I'm dying. I'm like, this is rough. And so like he took it off, and he was just drenched. And I was like, this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be a challenge. So it's going to force us to obviously think about, if we're shooting in spring or summer of next year, we've got to have some sort of cooling mechanism in the suits, and and making sure everybody's able to take suits on and off pretty quickly. So I said, so just making sure everybody's comfortable, I think, is the big thing.
I guess I better stay on your good side, or I'm going to be the one being the werewolf.
You don't know. You don't know. Maybe.
So the last question I got for you, outside of Massacre Academy and Wolf Hollow, are there any other films or projects that you are working on that you would like to promote to the listening and viewing audience, as well as any social media or websites that you would like to promote to the audience?
Honestly, I'm not working on anything else right now other than a couple of music videos.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of guys that I usually work with. One of them is named Joey Young. He is an amazing, talented singer who's probably not going to be around me for much longer. So he's going to probably wind up like tailing it out to LA here soon.
Nice.
But Joey is a fantastic artist. I've been privileged enough to shoot 2 music videos for him already, so I'm working on that. So his second single is about to drop on that, so we should be releasing that here soon. On July 3rd, I'm up in Philadelphia with another one of our guys that I've done a ton of music videos for, and I absolutely love. He's family to me at this point. His name's Leaky Yappa. But him and his crew, we're going up in beginning of July to shoot another music video for them. And like I said, so we stay pretty busy. Like I said, we tend to work with the same people over and over again, just because it's such a nice rhythm we all get into.
Right.
Other than that, like I said, I'm kind of taking my time with writing the script for Wolf Hollow, and that's pretty much it. There's not a lot else going on beyond delivering Massacre to distribution, and so those are the big 4 things that are like happening right now. So.
Awesome. Any social media you want to promote for anybody that can keep up to date on any of the projects?
If you find us under Massacre, I think it's under Massacre_Academy on Instagram. Okay. Wolf Hollow is at Wolf Hollow Official Movie. My personal one is Mark Cantu 98 on Instagram as well. If you want to follow us on Facebook, just find the Massacre Academy page. Okay. There's also an official fan page group as well on Facebook. Nice. But find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram. We've always got posts. We've got updates for new screenings that are going to be coming up here soon. And keep your eyes and ears peeled and posted for the film festivals and everything else we'll be hopefully announcing here soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I've
Not a
had a
problem.
blast, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, once I stop this recording, stick around. I want to talk to you, see what you think about that Halloween Kills leak trailer.
I do. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, man. And it's been an honor. And I was waiting for this for a while as well. I know you were waiting for a week. I've been waiting for a week. I'm so glad we could make it happen.
I know. Absolutely. All right. So we will definitely be seeing you, man.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.